What I want most is to show people that no matter how dark your life is, there's always light. Ever since I can remember, I've loved words. I feel like they bring us to different places that we can't go without them. And the expression of our hearts, our minds, our spirit, things that we have running around in our heads that no one else has access to, but with words they can see inside of us, really deep inside of us. I've always felt that way. I feel like words are an adventure, and I wanted to go on a big adventure in my life. I'm Cherie Kephart. I am a writer, inspirational speaker, and editor. I'm also a workshop facilitator, and I teach writing and the spirit of writing. And I help authors all the way from inception of an idea to publication on any aspects of the writing journey. I actually wanted to be a roller skating champion when I was young. I used to roller skate up and down Venice Beach where I grew up. And I just love being outdoors, and I love the freedom that it brought me. And I didn't want to be inside, and I didn't want to read. I liked to write, but I didn't want to read. But to be a good writer, you have to read. And I discovered reading later on when I was in high school. My English teacher in high school saw potential in me that I didn't see. And she challenged me to read a book. It was so impactful and so beautiful. It was haunting, it was dark, and it was absolutely lovely. It was one of the reasons I ended up going in the Peace Corps to Africa. I wanted to promote peace around the world. I wanted to see the way different people lived. So I got a letter in the mail, because that's the way they did it back then. It wasn't electronic. And it said, "Congratulations. After this vigorous process of interviews and background checks," and they said, "You have been accepted to be one of the first volunteers to go to Zambia." Now, I didn't know where Zambia was, so I had to go look it up, and it's South Central Africa. So when I was in the Peace Corps in Zambia, I kept getting sick, and I was a young, like 23-year-old fit woman, but I kept getting sicker and sicker and more symptoms. My body was failing me, and no one knew why. And finally I got so sick where I had several symptoms that were almost fatal. And the medical staff didn't know how to help me. They didn't know what was wrong with me. And finally, one of the doctors there decided to do a malaria smear, just in case, even though I never had any malaria-type symptoms. And it turned out positive. And all I wanted to do was serve these people and help and bring peace to the world and good health and wellness, because I was building wells and latrines and teaching health education up in my village. I couldn't even take care of myself. And so I was sent home, medically evacuated home. I wanted to return back to Africa, but I couldn't. My symptoms persisted, and I had to be symptom-free in order to be able to go back. But it never happened. Going back to school, getting my graduate work. I lived in New Zealand, and yet even during my master's degree, even while I was working and through my 20s and whatever I was doing, I had symptoms every day. And then I moved back to the United States, to San Diego, and I started working as a writer. And one day I collapsed while taking a shower. It felt like my neck had broke. Naked and wet, I crawled across the floor of my house and called for help. And that was the start of my long journey with this illness that had never left me since Africa. I was going from doctor to doctor to doctor to doctor to doctor, and so many of them sent me home with blank stares and bunches of lab tests, and nobody knew what to do. And they wanted to try me on medications, heavy, serious medications, experimental things, because they didn't know. And I took it upon myself to really listen to my intuition about these things. And I think another thing is what you think is going to happen, what you expect or predict or believe is never that way. Life always turns out differently. So when I looked to heal myself, I had to deconstruct my whole life. It wasn't just about finding a diagnosis or taking a pill or finding a cure. It was like, how have I contributed to my ill health? And what can I do to get out of my own way and to get well? So I had to take accountability and discover what was right for me to heal. And that means changing my whole life. And now I see health and well-being as a mandatory part of our human journey. It is about cultivating the awareness and desire to keep our body and our mind and our spirit in balance. And it is not something you just do once and it's over. You have to continually look at your life and make adjustments. And that's why my book is called A Few Minor Adjustments. It's an understatement, a colossal understatement about what we need to do in life. I wanted to find a book that spoke to what I was going through, and I couldn't find one. And so I decided to write the book I wanted to read. So as sick as I was, in hospital rooms, in my bed, because I was bedridden for a while, I would write about the experience of being undiagnosed and not knowing what was wrong, and that kept me going. It gave me something to hold on to, something to believe in. The book would be part of my healing and my growth. And writing is so much that. It's so cathartic, especially memoir, because we get to take the deepest, darkest parts of our lives and also the brightest, and excavate and go to the depths of everything that happened to us. Writing my memoir was a challenge in so many ways. I came from an academic background and scientific technical writing. Writing a book, writing a memoir is a totally different experience. It's all about story. See, our life is our life, but a memoir is a slice of your life. So that was the first hurdle, is trying to figure out how to write a book and how to write it well. The second hurdle was everything I went through was so dark and depressing. So I had to find a way to inject humor and levity into my book to make it accessible and palatable for the world. The other challenge was often when I was writing it, I was very sick. And then when I was well enough, I would write. So it was balancing my health and well-being with this desire and big project, because I really wanted to share this with the world so no one in the world would feel as lost, alone, and afraid as I felt. You have everything in you to write. The power is within you always. It's about getting out of your own way, being in the joy of writing and the joy of creation. We are creative beings inherently. We're meant to create. We're meant to produce works of art. This is why we live. So if you are drawn to writing, don't worry about grammar and syntax and structure and craft, all those techniques that you can learn. The main thing is to cultivate your passion, to inspire yourself, to look at those fears that may be getting in your way, and then you're free to create. And that's what draws people to reading, is not the words themselves, but the energy behind them. Who the author is and why they're writing and what they're writing for. So it's your passion and your extreme joy that's gonna come through, whatever it is you're trying to write. You can learn the craft, you can learn the techniques, but if you have that desire, it's just a matter of believing in yourself and doing it. I believe that my story has already made such an impact on so many people that have reached out to me with heartfelt responses. And for those that are about to experience my story, what I want most is to show people that no matter how dark your life is, there's always light. There's always something to be here for, even if you can't see your way out at the time. You just have to keep moving forward, keep moving through, and that's what I did.